In the last few years, the local food movement has become a major national trend. Farmers markets are booming. The White House has put in a vegetable garden. And the term locavore, meaning those eating local foods grown fewer than 100 miles away, has been added to the American Heritage Dictionary. One chapter in the local food movement is chronicled in the book, The Town That Food Saved, How One Community Found Vitality in Local Food. Author Ben Hewitt is here to tell us about his experiences. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks, Ethan. Yeah,
okay, so first question, I'd love to find out what you found, all your research, what you discovered, and also why this particular topic was so important to you.
Well, you know, I come at this from a definite bias because I actually own and operate with my wife and two sons a small-scale farm in northern Vermont. So I have an absolute bias toward localized food production. But the thing that got me really intrigued is that the town that's at the center of my book, Hardwick, Vermont, is a really small town of about 3,000 people on the edge of Vermont's Northeast Kingdom. So it's really rural, and it's a town that has really struggled economically for a long time, like decades, basically. And about 2005, 2006, I started noticing, I live one town over from Hardwick, so I had a real sort of bird's eye view of what was going on. All these small-scale ag-based ventures popping up in the area. And I also started hearing a lot of talk about how these business owners were going to work together to sort of create a healthy, regionalized food system. And I became really intrigued for a couple of reasons. One, it had always sort of been my perception that the local food movement was really something that was happening in places that were more affluent than this town. And the other thing I really wanted to sort of study was, you know, what did they really mean by a localized healthy food system? I mean, what are the actual components of that system? How does that really work? And if we're going to start moving in the direction of small-scale regionalized food systems, it seemed really important to me to start to really, you know, look at this with a more critical eye.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the individual for a minute. I mean,
Sure.
Your book talks a lot about the community in general.
Right.
What kind of tips do you have just for your average Joe living in a big city?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do as individuals is really sort of think about what it is that we want to support. Okay, and so and to the extent that we're able, and of course it's not always easy, but be willing to sort of show that commitment by sort of voting with our dollars, so to speak. So I think the first thing is to really sort of develop an awareness and think about the values and what it is that we want to support in our communities, and that sort of I think leads us to the willingness perhaps to support these ventures. Small things that people can do on their own, even if they don't want to actually get their hands dirty. But 40% of the food in this country is discarded. It's 40% of the food we produce. So, one of the things that we can do, I mean, the best thing would be to get that into the mouths of people who are actually hungry. Mm-hmm. The second best thing is instead of throwing it in the garbage, is to compost it. And composting is something that anybody can do. You can do it in your apartment or condo. It doesn't stink. And you can take that compost down to a community garden. Most communities now have some kind of community garden or some kind of, you can try to find a local grower who can use it and actually return this stuff to the soil. It's part of sort of creating what I call a sort of circular food system where we're utilizing waste stream resources that are actually really valuable, which we've come to think of them as waste, but they're not.
Is there one takeaway message in your book that you'd like to let everyone know about?
Yeah, I think the takeaway message is that we do need to start to redefine the values, in this country. I think that we have gone for a long time. We have been sort of captivated by this idea that we're going to continue to grow our GDP and we're going to have prosperity by growing our GDP and by taking out big loans and sort of propping up this system that clearly doesn't have a very bright future. I mean, it's really hard, I think, for anyone who's paying too much attention to what's going on globally to think, oh, in 50 years we're going to be looking back and thinking, wow, that worked out really well. I mean, I think the work needs to start now. And I think, while I don't think food is the only thing we need to work on, I think the potential is perhaps higher with food than it is for anything else because it has the capacity to restore so many facets of our lives and communities.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for stopping by. It's great having you here.
Thanks, Julia.
After going local for our foods, we'll go local for our fitness. Outside's Nick Heil shows us how to create a full-scale gym workout using Mother Nature. That's next on Outside Today.